Yeah, the offensive line. Um, in looking at some of the comments from Bill Bedenbaugh that you had referenced, and then looking at them myself today, they're certainly counting on the Cal transfer to be maybe the best offensive lineman on the team. It appears he's got over 1,700 snaps in his career at Cal and graded out very well as a high school senior coming into college football, and has continued to progress and become a pretty big time player. McCade Matower. So him in particular, Anton Harrison seems to be a guy that graded out based on what I see here with 671 snaps as the best offensive lineman coming back from last season. Played all 13 games at left tackle. So we'll start there.
Yeah, I think, and that's interesting. That's the first name that I wrote down, Mark, in terms of players that I'm interested in, just to watch from the offensive line perspective. So you look at a kid like Anton Harrison, worlds of talent. He has all of the measurables. So I think that the challenge with him that Oklahoma has seen this past year is work ethic and having a high motor. I think this is something that I've heard Gabe talk about a lot. Is that the measurables are there. There, he's the prototypical left tackle that you would like to see at a big time program like Oklahoma. But does he have the will? Does he have the desire to be great and to do the things that he needs to do to be great? And so a lot of times last year he didn't necessarily do a great job, Mark, at being consistent. He would have phases where he would play really, really well, but then he would have phases where he would just kind of be out there and have terrible technique and just, kind of running through, just going through the motions. So is he one of those that um, can he be the guy that's really trustworthy from a left tackle perspective? You mentioned McCade Matower. I think he's a guy that Mark, I think, as much as you possibly can, without being on campus, without playing as much. I think you can almost pencil him in as one of these guard positions for Oklahoma. He's been that impressive, I think, early on from everything that I've heard as well. Andrew Raim, I think, is another one who's very interesting. I think Raim was a kid last year that was, I think, from a technique perspective, I think from a, calling out the defense, knowing exactly what he needs to do. I think he was fine there. I think where he struggled a lot was kind of from the strength and conditioning perspective, because you would see him get pushed around a lot. So I think it's going to be a really big spring for him, and I think more so probably a really big summer for him, just to see, um, you know, if he can get his strength up to a point to where it necessarily needs to be the anchor for that offensive line. And so, a couple other kids that are really interesting to me that you have listed, and I have kind of listed myself, is Juanya Morris. I think he came in as really kind of a kid that was ballyhooed from Tennessee, played really well for a couple of years with there, specifically his first year, started almost every game, started a majority of the games his second year, but then really just didn't. He got off to a little bit of a bad start with some nagging injuries early on in the fall camp, and he really just didn't make the jump that a lot of people assumed that he would make. I think a lot of people assumed that he would be a starter either on the left or the right side from a tackle perspective. But he's a guy that Oklahoma is going to look at, as much as any. Mark, our guys is a guy at a position of need that Oklahoma has a loss there at the right tackle position as a guy, or even battling at the left tackle spot as well. A couple of younger kids that will be interesting to see how they get into the mix. Jacob Sexton and then Jake Taylor, two true freshmen coming in. They came in early. They will have the opportunity to battle The thing that you always worry about from a true freshman perspective coming in, are they physically ready? Body type, are they ready? Do they have the maturity there? So I think those are two kids that'll get a look early on, and obviously it'll be interesting to see to watch them. Savion Bird is another young kid that was talked about early on in the fall camp last year as a guy that was young, had a lot of talent, but very raw, but was extremely strong, one of the strongest kids on the team. So it'll be interesting to see if he is able to kind of make his way into the rotation. Either probably at guard, I think is where he projects, and I think one of the other ones, the last one that I have written down here is a guy we've talked about a decent amount on here is Bray Walker. Bray Walker is a guy that has been at Oklahoma for quite some time, 4 years. I believe he is a senior this year. Explored the portal and in the off season here. Didn't really find anything that really kind of was really felt like it was a good fit for him. So decided to come back to Oklahoma. Is he a guy that can make a move here late in his career? You see a lot of kids that are able to at some point the light just kind of turns on, so to speak, and then they figure out what they need to do to be able to not only be successful but get into that rotation. So he's a guy that's going to be interesting to watch to see what that will look like. But you got 7-8 guys here that you're talking about that you're interested to see how that line develops, because this is the biggest question mark for me on the offensive side of the ball, and maybe overall for the entire team coming into 2022. Is can the offensive line be good enough to allow Oklahoma to be as successful on the offensive side of the ball as they need to be? I mean, you can pinpoint a couple of things. This last year was Oklahoma's probably worst, maybe not worst, but the least proficient offense that Oklahoma's had over the last 5 years, as well. And one guy that I see a comment on that I missed was Tyler Guyton, who was a transfer over from TCU. He's a guy 6'7", 300 plus. We'll get a look as well. But I think one of the things that, like I said, one of the things that'll be interesting, Mark, is how this offensive line comes together through the spring and through the fall, because I think it's the key component to Oklahoma having a good offense versus having potentially could be a great offense.